Tonight we are traveling back more than 700 years to a quiet medieval village where life moved slowly, comfort was rare, and nearly every sunrise meant another day of hard work. Before you close your eyes, imagine standing on a narrow dirt road. The air is cool and carries the scent of damp earth, wood smoke, and freshly cut hay. In the distance, a church bell rings across the fields. Chickens scratch through the dust and a few cows wander lazily behind rough wooden fences. There are no cars, no electricity, no running water, and no glowing screens. Instead, the rhythm of life follows the rising and setting of the sun. Around you stand small cottages built from timber, clay, and straw. Smoke drifts gently from their chimneys, while thatched roofs protect families from rain, snow, and bitter winter winds. Inside these homes, entire families often share a single room, where cooking, eating, working, and sleeping all happen in the same space. Most people living here are peasants. They are not kings, knights, or wealthy merchants. They do not wear shining armor or live in magnificent castles. Their lives are quieter, far more difficult, and yet they make up almost 90% of the population in many parts of medieval Europe. Without their labor, kingdoms would struggle to survive. Every loaf of bread, every bundle of firewood, every sack of grain, and every harvest begins with their hands. From childhood, they learn that survival depends on constant work. There are fields to plow, animals to feed, water to carry, and endless repairs to make before another season arrives. Even simple tasks can take hours. Grinding grain into flour requires patience and strength. Washing clothes means walking to a nearby stream. Collecting enough wood for winter may consume an entire day. Life is unpredictable. One poor harvest can bring hunger. A harsh winter may kill livestock. Disease can spread through a village with frightening speed, while medicine offers little comfort beyond herbs and prayer. Yet despite these hardships, medieval villages are not without moments of joy. Children laugh while chasing each other through open fields. Neighbors gather during harvest festivals. Church celebrations offer music, stories, and rare opportunities to rest from endless labor. In this long journey together, we will explore every stage of a medieval peasant's life, from birth and childhood to marriage, work, old age, and finally, the quiet end of life in a world that feels unimaginably distant from our own. So settle into a comfortable position, let your breathing slow, and allow history to unfold one peaceful story at a time. Our journey into the everyday life of medieval Europe begins now. If you were born into a medieval peasant family, your future was decided long before you could take your first step. There were no applications to fill out, no schools that promised a better career, and very few opportunities to change your place in society. Your parents were peasants, and almost certainly you would become one too. Most babies entered the world inside a small wooden cottage. The room was simple and dark, lit only by the soft glow of a fire or a few candles. The walls were made of timber covered with mud and straw, while the floor was nothing more than packed earth. There were no hospitals. There were no trained doctors waiting nearby. Instead, an experienced village midwife would arrive to help with the birth. She had learned her skills through years of experience passed down from older women in the village. The process was dangerous for both mother and child. Without modern medicine, even a small complication could become fatal. Infection, heavy bleeding, or a difficult labor often ended in tragedy. For many families, every birth brought both hope and fear. If the baby survived the first few weeks, it was considered a blessing. Sadly, many children never reached their 5th birthday. Disease, poor nutrition, and harsh living conditions claimed countless young lives across medieval Europe. Parents understood this painful reality. Although they loved their children deeply, they also knew that survival could never be taken for granted. Soon after birth, the baby was usually baptized at the village church. Religion played a central role in medieval life, and families believed that baptism protected the child's soul. The ceremony was simple but deeply meaningful. Neighbors and relatives often gathered, offering prayers and quiet wishes for the baby's future. Back at home, life quickly returned to its normal rhythm. The newborn slept in a simple wooden cradle, wrapped in linen cloth, to stay warm during cold nights. The family owned very few possessions. Every blanket, every wooden bowl, and every piece of clothing was valuable. Nothing was wasted. As the child grew, there were no colorful nurseries or shelves filled with toys. Instead, everyday life became the classroom. Children watched their parents work from an early age. They learned by observing. They copied what they saw. A little boy might carry small bundles of firewood before he could read. A little girl might help grind grain or feed chickens while still very young. Childhood was short. Responsibility arrived early, yet even in these difficult circumstances, moments of happiness still existed. Children laughed together in the fields. They invented games using sticks, stones, and imagination. A simple afternoon chasing geese or running through the grass could feel like a grand adventure. For a brief time before adulthood demanded endless labor, they were simply children. And tomorrow, with the sunrise, another lesson in survival would quietly begin. Take another slow breath and imagine that several years have passed. You are no longer a newborn wrapped in linen. You are now a small child, beginning to notice the world around you. The first thing you truly know is your home. Do not picture a large stone house with bright windows and comfortable furniture. Instead, imagine a tiny cottage standing at the edge of a muddy village road. It is built from thick wooden beams, with walls made from woven branches covered in clay and straw. The roof is thatched with reeds or dry straw, carefully tied together to keep out the rain. From a distance, every cottage looks almost the same. Simple, weathered, built by the hands of ordinary people. The door is low enough that most adults must bend their heads before entering. Inside, the room is darker than you might expect. Small openings in the walls allow a little daylight to enter, but glass windows are rare and expensive. Most homes simply have wooden shutters that can be opened during the day and closed at night. The floor beneath your feet is hard-packed earth. It is swept regularly, but it is never perfectly clean. Bits of straw, ash from the fire, and muddy footprints are part of everyday life. At the center of the house burns the most important place of all, the hearth. A small fire provides warmth, light, and a place to cook every meal. Without it, winter would become almost impossible to survive. Smoke slowly rises toward a hole in the roof. But not all of it escapes. Much of the smoke lingers inside the cottage, filling the air with the familiar smell of burning wood. Your eyes become used to it. Your family hardly notices anymore. Around the walls stand only a few pieces of furniture, a rough wooden table, several handmade stools, perhaps a single chest where the family's most valuable belongings are kept. There are no soft sofas, no bookshelves, no decorated bedrooms. Space is precious. At night, straw mattresses are spread across the floor. Parents, children, and sometimes even grandparents sleep together in the same room, sharing warmth during cold evenings. Blankets are made from coarse wool. They are heavy, scratchy, and carefully repaired whenever they begin to wear out. Nothing is thrown away if it can still be used. Every object has value. Every possession represents many hours of hard work. Outside the cottage, life continues from sunrise until sunset. A small vegetable garden grows beside the house. Cabbages, onions, beans, and herbs provide precious food throughout the year. A few chickens wander freely through the yard. Sometimes a pig lives nearby. If the family is fortunate, they may even own a cow, one of the most valuable animals a peasant could possess. Children are expected to help with these animals almost as soon as they are old enough to walk, fetching water, gathering eggs, collecting firewood. Small jobs become daily habits. As evening arrives, darkness settles quickly across the village. Without electricity, night is truly dark. The family gathers quietly around the fire. Someone repairs a tool. Someone mends old clothing. Perhaps an elder tells a familiar story that has been passed down through many generations. Outside, the wind moves gently through the trees. The distant sound of an owl echoes across the fields. Inside the little cottage, the fire slowly fades into glowing embers. Tomorrow will bring another day of work. But for now, the tiny house offers something precious, a place of warmth, a place of family, and for one peaceful night, a place to rest before the sun rises once again. The years pass quietly. You are no longer the smallest child in the cottage. Your hands have grown stronger, your steps more confident, and your family now expects you to help with the work that fills every single day. In a medieval village, childhood is brief. There is little time for endless play. Almost every child begins learning useful skills long before reaching adulthood. There are no classrooms waiting for you each morning. No notebooks, no examinations. Instead, the fields become your school, and your parents become your teachers. Your first lessons are simple. Carry a small bucket of water. Gather fallen branches for the fire. Scatter grain for the chickens. Watch carefully as your father repairs a broken fence. Stand beside your mother while she kneads dough for the day's bread. Every task is repeated again and again until it becomes second nature. No one gives long speeches about responsibility. Responsibility simply becomes part of everyday life. As you grow older, the work becomes harder. You help lead the family's cow toward the pasture. You pull weeds from the vegetable garden. You carry bundles of hay that seem almost too heavy for your shoulders. Your hands become rough. Your clothes become stained with mud. By the end of each day you are tired, yet tomorrow will begin exactly the same way. The changing seasons decide what work must be done. Spring is filled with planting. Summer brings endless days beneath the hot sun. Autumn is the busy season of harvest, when every family works from dawn until darkness. Winter is quieter but never truly restful. There is always firewood to chop, tools to repair, animals to feed, clothes to mend. Even during the coldest months, work never completely disappears. Mistakes carry real consequences. If crops are planted too late, the harvest may fail. If the animals are neglected, a family could lose valuable food or income. Everyone understands that survival depends upon careful work. Despite the hard labor, children still find moments of joy. While walking to the fields, they race each other along narrow paths. They laugh while chasing birds away from newly planted seeds. Sometimes they carve simple whistles from branches or shape little toys from scraps of wood. These small moments of happiness feel precious because they are rare. As evening arrives, the family returns home together. Boots are covered in mud. Hands ache from hours of labor. The smell of soup slowly fills the cottage as supper cooks over the fire. The meal is simple. Perhaps coarse bread, a bowl of vegetable stew, and a little cheese if the family is fortunate. No one complains. Food is appreciated because everyone understands how difficult it is to produce. After supper, there is still work to finish. A broken basket must be repaired. Tomorrow's tools must be prepared. The animals must be checked one final time before darkness settles across the village. Only then does the family gather beside the fading fire. The room grows quiet. Outside, the stars slowly appear above the sleeping countryside. Another day has ended. Another lesson has been learned. And without realizing it, you have already begun the life of a medieval peasant, where every sunrise brings new work, and every sunset is earned through honest effort. As the warm days of autumn slowly fade away, the village begins preparing for its greatest yearly challenge. Winter is coming. For a medieval peasant, winter is not simply a colder season. It is a test of preparation, patience, and survival. The fields that were once bright with grain now lie silent beneath gray skies. The trees have dropped their leaves. The days grow shorter. Each morning a thin layer of frost covers the ground, sparkling briefly before disappearing beneath the weak winter sun. Everyone in the village works with greater urgency. Firewood must be gathered before the heavy snow arrives. Every log is carefully stacked beside the cottage. A family that fails to collect enough wood may spend freezing nights without warmth. Food is just as important. Barrels of grain are stored in dry places. Vegetables such as onions, cabbages, and turnips are kept for the months ahead. Meat, when available, is salted or smoked to keep it from spoiling. Nothing is wasted. Every bite of food may become essential before spring returns. For children, winter brings mixed emotions. The cold air stings their faces as they step outside each morning. Their simple wool clothing offers only limited protection against the icy wind. Gloves are uncommon. Boots often become wet from melting snow and muddy roads, yet children still find reasons to smile. A frozen pond becomes a place of adventure. Fresh snow invites footprints and laughter. For a short while, even the harsh season feels magical. Inside the cottage, life becomes quieter. The family spends more time gathered around the glowing fire. Someone spins wool into thread. Someone repairs worn clothing. Another sharpens farming tools that will be needed once spring arrives. Stories fill the long evenings. Grandparents speak of difficult winters from many years ago. They remember seasons when food almost disappeared. They tell tales of wolves wandering near the village after dark. Whether every story is true hardly matters. The children listen carefully, their eyes reflecting the warm light of the fire. Winter also brings danger. The single illness can spread quickly through a household. Without modern medicine, even a simple fever may become life-threatening. Families pray that everyone remains healthy until warmer weather returns. Sometimes the snow becomes so deep that traveling to the nearest town is impossible. The village feels isolated from the rest of the world. Days pass slowly. The same familiar faces, the same small cottage, the same careful routine. Still, life continues. Each sunrise means another day survived. Each shared meal is another reminder that preparation has made a difference. As the weeks pass, people begin watching for small signs of change. the songs of returning birds, the sound of melting ice, the first green shoots pushing through the frozen earth. These tiny signs bring hope, because every medieval peasant knows one simple truth: no winter lasts forever. Eventually, spring will return, and with it, another season of hard work, fresh beginnings, and the endless cycle of life in the medieval countryside. The sun rises once again over the village. A cool breeze drifts across the fields as families begin another day of work. Before anyone steps outside, there is one simple necessity: getting dressed. Today, choosing clothes might take only a few moments, but for a medieval peasant, clothing was precious. Every shirt, every cloak, and every pair of shoes represented weeks or even months of careful work. Most families owned very little. A child might have only one everyday outfit, and if the family was fortunate, a slightly better set of clothes reserved for church or special celebrations. There were no overflowing wardrobes, no changing fashions every season. Clothes were expected to last for many years. Most garments were made from wool or linen. Wool kept people warm during the long winters, while linen felt lighter during the warmer months. Both materials required an enormous amount of effort to produce. Sheep had to be raised and sheared. The wool needed to be cleaned, spun into thread, and woven into cloth. Linen came from flax plants, which demanded just as much patience before becoming usable fabric. Nothing happened quickly. Every piece of cloth represented countless hours of labor. Because clothing was so valuable, nothing was ever thrown away. When a sleeve tore, it was patched. When a knee wore thin, another piece of cloth was sewn over it. Some garments contained so many repairs that the patches became part of the clothing itself. Children often wore clothes handed down by older brothers or sisters. A shirt that once belonged to a father might later be cut down to fit his son. A dress worn by one daughter could eventually be altered for another. The fabric lived many different lives before it finally wore out completely. Shoes were even more valuable. Most were made from leather and carefully repaired whenever possible. Many peasants owned only a single pair. During muddy seasons, they tried not to wear them unless absolutely necessary. Walking barefoot was common, especially during the warmer months. Comfort was a luxury. Durability mattered far more. The colors of peasant clothing were usually plain: soft shades of brown, gray, cream, faded green. These natural colors came from simple dyes that were inexpensive to produce. Bright colors, such as rich purple or deep crimson, belonged mainly to wealthy nobles and powerful merchants. A peasant's clothing quietly revealed their place in society without a single word being spoken. Even washing clothes required hard work. There were no washing machines. Families carried heavy baskets to nearby streams. Clothing was scrubbed by hand using water, sand, wood ash, or homemade soap. The work could take hours afterward. The garments were hung outside to dry beneath the open sky. Rain often delayed the process. Strong winds sometimes carried smaller pieces away, yet the work had to be done. As evening approached, the family returned home once again. Their clothes smelled of fresh earth smoke and the fields where they had spent the day. The fabric was rough, the shoes were worn, the patches were easy to see, but none of that mattered, because these simple clothes had carried them through another day of honest work. And with careful hands, they would continue doing so for many seasons to come. The village is still quiet, the sky is dark, and only a faint blue light appears along the eastern horizon. Long before the sun rises, your family is already awake. There are no alarm clocks, no ringing phones. The rhythm of life is guided by nature itself. A rooster crows somewhere in the distance. The family slowly rises from their straw mattresses. The fire in the hearth has nearly gone out during the night. Before anything else can happen, someone carefully stirs the glowing embers and places fresh pieces of wood onto the fire. Soon, warm orange flames begin to dance once again. The cottage slowly fills with gentle warmth. Breakfast is never a grand feast. For most medieval peasants, the first meal of the day is small and simple. A thick bowl of porridge made from oats or barley is common. Sometimes it is flavored with onions or herbs gathered from the garden. On fortunate mornings, there may be a piece of coarse bread left from the day before. Fresh bread is a luxury that cannot always be enjoyed. Butter is rare. Sugar is almost unknown. Honey appears only on special occasions. Every bite is eaten slowly because food is too valuable to waste. Children sit quietly beside their parents. Even the youngest understand that breakfast is not a time for complaints. It is fuel for the long hours of work that lie ahead. The family drinks small amounts of ale or weak beer instead of plain water. This may seem surprising today, But clean drinking water is not always easy to find. Water taken from rivers or ponds can sometimes carry dangerous diseases. Weak ale, brewed with low alcohol content, is often considered a safer choice. It is consumed by adults and children alike. As the meal continues, conversation remains calm. There is little need for many words. Everyone already knows the day's responsibilities. The father thinks about the fields. The mother plans the household tasks. The children wonder which chores they will be given today. Outside, the first rays of sunlight begin to spread across the fields. Mist rises gently above the grass. Birds begin their morning songs. The village slowly comes alive. Doors open one after another. Neighbors greet each other with quiet smiles. Smoke curls upward from dozens of thatched cottages as breakfast fires burn across the village. The peaceful morning will not last long. Soon, every person will return to work. Fields must be plowed, animals must be fed, water must be carried. The day has only just begun. Before leaving the cottage, each family member quietly offers thanks for the food they have received. No one knows whether the next harvest will be plentiful or poor. Gratitude is part of daily life. As the last spoonful of porridge disappears from the wooden bowl, the family stands. The door opens, cool morning air rushes inside. Another day of work begins beneath the rising medieval sun. The morning meal is over. The fire continues to burn quietly behind you as the cottage door closes with a soft wooden thud. Outside, the village is fully awake. The air is cool and fresh, carrying the scent of dirt, earth, and freshly cut grass. A light mist still hangs over the fields, slowly disappearing as the sun climbs higher into the sky. You join your family on the narrow dirt path leading away from the village. There are no paved roads, no wagons rushing past, no sound of engines, only the steady footsteps of neighbors beginning another ordinary day. Almost everyone you pass is carrying something. One man balances a wooden hoe across his shoulder. Another pushes a simple handcart filled with tools. A young girl carries a bucket toward the village well. A small boy struggles with an armful of firewood, determined to help despite the heavy load. No one seems to be in a hurry. Life follows the same familiar rhythm it has followed for generations. The fields stretch across the countryside like a patchwork of green and brown. Some are freshly plowed. Others are filled with growing wheat or barley, gently moving with the morning breeze. These fields are the heart of the village. Everything depends on them. If they produce a good harvest, families will eat well during the winter. If they fail, hunger may visit every cottage before the year is over. As you walk, birds suckle overhead. A lark sings somewhere above the open fields. Far in the distance, the church bell rings once more, reminding everyone that another working day has begun. The land is beautiful, but it is also demanding. Every patch of soil has been cleared, planted, and cared for by countless hands over many years. Nothing grows without effort. The village itself owns very little. Most of the land belongs to a local lord. The peasants work these fields in exchange for protection and the right to farm small pieces of land for their own families. It is not a perfect system, but for most people, it is simply the way life has always been. As you reach your family's field, the day's work begins immediately. There is little time for rest. The tools are simple: a wooden plow, an iron hoe, a sharp sickle for harvesting grain. These tools have been repaired many times and will continue to serve the family for years if cared for properly. Before anyone speaks, there is a quiet moment. The morning sun shines across the fields. The breeze moves gently through the growing crops. For just a few seconds, everything feels peaceful. Then the work begins. The sound of metal striking earth echoes across the countryside. Hands grow dirty. Boots sink into soft soil. Hour after hour, the family works together, knowing that every seed planted today brings hope for tomorrow. The road back to the village is still many hours away. For now, the fields are your world. And beneath the wide medieval sky, another day of quiet determination has only just begun. The peaceful silence of the morning soon gives way to the steady rhythm of work. The sun climbs a little higher into the sky, warming the fields with gentle light. Now comes one of the most important tasks in a peasant's life: preparing the soil. Without healthy soil, there can be no harvest. Without a harvest, there can be no bread. Every family understands this simple truth. The earth beneath your feet has been worked for generations. Your grandfather turned this same soil. Your father followed after him. Now it is your turn. The tools are basic but dependable. A heavy wooden plow, strengthened with an iron blade, cuts narrow lines through the ground. Where the soil is too hard for the plow, a hoe must be used instead. Each swing requires patience. Each step demands strength. the work is slow. There are no powerful machines to finish the job in an afternoon. Everything depends on human hands and the strength of a few hard-working animals. If the family owns an ox, the plow becomes easier to pull. The large animal moves slowly across the field, breathing heavily as it drags the wooden frame through the earth. An ox is not simply livestock, it is one of the family's greatest treasures. Losing such an animal could make farming much more difficult for years to come. As the soil turns over, the rich smell of fresh earth fills the air. Birds quickly gather behind the plow. They search for worms and insects uncovered by the freshly disturbed ground. Nature quietly follows every movement. The work continues hour after hour. Sweat forms on your forehead, your hands begin to ache, your back grows stiff from bending and lifting. Still, no one stops. There is always another row waiting to be finished. Around you, neighboring families are doing exactly the same thing. Across the valley, dozens of peasants move slowly through their fields. No one works alone for long. Sometimes neighbors help each other during the busiest seasons. A difficult job becomes a little easier when many hands work together. Conversations are simple. A few words about the weather. A comment about the coming harvest. A quiet joke that brings a brief smile before everyone returns to work. The weather is always on every farmer's mind. Too much rain can flood the crops. Too little rain leaves the ground dry and cracked. A sudden storm can destroy weeks of careful effort in only a few hours. There is very little anyone can do except hope. As midday approaches, the sun grows warmer. The shadows become shorter. The family pauses for only a few moments to drink water or weak ale and eat a small piece of bread. It is not a long break. The field cannot wait. Soon the work begins again. Each furrow in the soil is another small step toward survival. Each seed that will later be planted carries the promise of food for the months ahead. By the time the afternoon sun begins its slow journey toward the horizon, the field has changed. What was rough and uneven this morning now lies neatly prepared for planting. It is hard work, quiet work, honest work, and for a medieval peasant, it is simply another ordinary day in a lifetime spent working the land. The field is finally ready. The hard earth has been turned. The stones have been cleared away. The long hours of preparation are complete. Now comes a task that every medieval peasant understands is filled with hope: planting the seeds. At first glance, the work seems simple. You reach into a small cloth bag hanging from your shoulder. Inside are handfuls of precious grain, wheat, barley, or perhaps rye, depending on the land and the season. Each tiny seed looks ordinary, but to your family, every single one represents the future. These are not simply grains. They are next winter's bread. They are next year's survival. With slow and practiced movements, you scatter the seeds across the freshly prepared soil. Your hand swings gently from side to side. Years of experience have taught you how to spread them as evenly as possible. Too many seeds in one place, and the plants will compete for space. Too few, and valuable land will remain empty. There is no machine to guide your hand, only patience, only practice, only hope. Behind you, another family member follows with a wooden rake, lightly covering the scattered grain with fresh earth. Soon the seeds disappear beneath the soil, hidden from sight. Waiting quietly for rain and warmth, nature will decide the rest. The weather is never predictable. A week of gentle rain may bring healthy green shoots. A sudden frost can destroy everything. Heavy storms may wash the seeds away before they have a chance to grow. Every farmer understands that much of life remains beyond human control. Still, they continue planting, because hope is stronger than fear. As you work across the field, the village seems peaceful. The breeze carries the scent of fresh earth. Birds sing from nearby trees. Clouds drift slowly across the wide blue sky. It is difficult to imagine that these quiet fields hold so much uncertainty. Children often help with the planting. Their smaller hands carry baskets of seed from one end of the field to the other. They watch their parents carefully, learning the movements they will one day repeat themselves. This knowledge is never written in books. It is passed from one generation to the next, father to son, mother to daughter, neighbor to neighbor, season after season. By late afternoon, the work is nearly finished. The once empty field has become a place of hidden promise. Nothing appears different on the surface. Only bare earth stretches toward the horizon. Yet beneath the soil, thousands of tiny seeds now rest in silence. Each one carries the possibility of life. As the family stands together at the edge of the field, they pause for a quiet moment. No cheers, no celebration, only silent hope. Because they know the truth. Planting the seeds is only the beginning. Many months of hard work still lie ahead, And whether these tiny grains become a plentiful harvest or a season of hunger is a story that only time will tell. The family turns toward home. The evening sun casts long golden shadows across the countryside. Behind them, the freshly planted field waits patiently beneath the fading light. Another chapter in the endless cycle of medieval life has begun. As the days pass, one simple task repeats itself again and again. Fetching water. To us, turning a tap is effortless. But in a medieval village, every drop of water must be carried by hand. Before the morning grows too warm, people begin walking toward the village well. Some carry wooden buckets, others balance clay jugs carefully against their hips. The path is already familiar. Hundreds of footsteps have worn it smooth over many years. The well stands near the center of the village. It is one of the busiest places in the community, not because people come to rest, but because everyone depends upon it. Without water, there can be no cooking, no washing, no bread, no life. A long wooden beam stretches above the well. A rope hangs from its end, tied securely to a heavy bucket. One by one, villagers lower it into the darkness below. There is a quiet splash. The rope grows heavy. Slowly, carefully, the bucket rises once again, filled with cool water from deep beneath the earth. The work requires strength. A full bucket is surprisingly heavy. Children often struggle to carry even half the weight, yet they learn quickly. Like every other task in village life, practice makes the burden easier. The well is more than a source of water. It is also where news travels. Neighbors greet one another with warm smiles. They speak about the weather. They discuss the growing crops. Someone mentions that a traveling merchant may arrive next week. Another whispers that wolves were seen near the forest. Stories spread quietly from one family to another. There are no newspapers, no radios, no telephones. The village well is where information flows as naturally as the water itself. Children gather nearby while their parents work. Some chase each other around the edge of the square. Others sit patiently beside the buckets, waiting for the long walk home. An elderly woman offers gentle advice to a young mother. Two old farmers debate whether the coming harvest will be early or late. Life moves slowly, no one seems rushed. The rhythm of the village has remained almost unchanged for generations. Once the buckets are full, the journey home begins. Water must not be spilled. Every careful step matters. The wooden handles press against tired hands, shoulders begin to ache. But stopping too often only delays the day's many other chores. Back at the cottage, the water is poured into large wooden barrels. Some will be used for cooking, some for washing clothes, some for feeding the animals. Every drop has a purpose. Nothing is wasted. As the afternoon sun climbs higher into the sky, the well becomes quiet once more. Its cool water waits patiently for the next visitor. Tomorrow and the day after, someone will return again. Because in a medieval village, life is built upon simple routines, and sometimes the smallest daily task is also the most important. The buckets of water have been carried home. The morning chores continue without pause. Now it is time to prepare the food that keeps the family alive. Bread. For a medieval peasant, bread is far more than a simple meal. It is breakfast, it is dinner. It is often the largest part of every day's food. Without bread, hunger is never far away. Inside the cottage, a large wooden bowl is placed upon the table. Flour is poured carefully into it. Every handful matters. The flour has taken weeks of hard work to produce. The grain was planted in spring, protected through summer, harvested in autumn, then carried to the village mill where it was slowly ground between enormous stones. Nothing about bread is easy. Warm water is added to the flour, a pinch of salt if the family can afford it. Sometimes a little sourdough starter, saved from yesterday's baking, is mixed into the dough. There is no packet of yeast waiting on a shelf. Nature provides what it can. Strong hands begin to knead the mixture. Again and again, press, fold, turn, repeat. The dough slowly becomes smooth and soft beneath hard-working fingers. Children often watch closely. Soon enough, they too will learn this important skill. Every family has its own small traditions. Some whisper a quiet prayer before placing the dough aside to rise. Others simply wait in silence, hoping the bread will bake well. Outside, smoke curls gently from nearby cottages. Across the village, dozens of families are preparing their own loaves. The smell of fresh bread slowly fills the air. It is one of the most comforting scents in medieval life. The oven is already hot. Many villages share a large communal oven owned by the local lord or the community itself. Families carry their shaped loaves there, wrapped in cloth or resting on wooden boards. The The baker carefully slides each loaf into the glowing heat. Everyone waits patiently. There is no timer, only experience, only careful observation. After some time, the bread emerges with a firm crust and a warm golden color. It is not the soft white bread many people enjoy today. It is dense, heavy, sometimes dark in color, yet it is nourishing. It gives strength for another long day of labor. Back at home, the first loaf is placed upon the wooden table. The family gathers quietly. A simple knife cuts thick slices. Steam rises gently into the cool air. Some pieces are eaten with vegetable soup. Others are dipped into a little milk or spread with soft cheese if the family is fortunate. Every crumb is valued. If a piece falls onto the floor, someone quickly picks it up. Food is never treated carelessly. Children learn this lesson from their earliest years. The final slices are wrapped carefully in cloth. They will become tomorrow morning's breakfast. Nothing is wasted. As the evening sun begins to sink behind the distant hills, the smell of fresh bread still lingers inside the cottage. It is a quiet reminder that another day's work has been rewarded. For one more night, the family has enough to eat, and in the uncertain world of medieval Europe, that alone is something worth giving thanks for. The fresh loaf of bread on your table has a story that began long before it entered the oven. Its journey started in the fields, but before grain could become flour, it had to visit one of the most important places in every medieval village, the mill. Early in the morning, your family fills several rough sacks with dried grain. The harvest has already been cleaned as carefully as possible. Still, tiny stones, bits of straw, and dust remain mixed among the kernels. Nothing is perfectly clean. Nothing is wasted. The sacks are heavy. Your father lifts one onto his shoulder. Another is loaded onto a small wooden cart pulled by the family's patient ox. Together, the family begins the slow walk toward the mill. The road follows a narrow stream. Soon, a familiar sound reaches your ears. A deep, steady creaking, the gentle rush of moving water, and the slow turning of a giant wooden wheel. The village mill comes into view. It is larger than most cottages, standing proudly beside the river. The water wheel turns without stopping, powered by the flowing stream that has served the village for generations. To a young child, the wheel almost seems alive. It never grows tired. It never asks for rest. Inside the mill, the air feels completely different from the quiet countryside outside. Fine white flour floats gently through the sunlight pouring from narrow windows. The smell of fresh grain fills every corner of the room. The great millstones rotate slowly, their rough surfaces grinding thousands of tiny grains into soft flour. The sound is constant, stone against stone, wood against wood. The miller moves carefully through the building. His work demands experience. If the stones turn too quickly, the flour becomes too hot. If they move too slowly, precious time is lost. Every family depends upon his skill. One by one, villagers wait patiently for their turn. Some exchange stories while they wait. Others quietly inspect this year's grain. Children watch with wide eyes as golden kernels disappear between the enormous stones and emerge moments later as pale flour. It almost feels like magic, but everyone knows it is simply years of knowledge and careful craftsmanship. The miller receives a small payment for his work. Sometimes it is a handful of grain, sometimes a portion of the finished flour. This payment is known by every family and accepted as part of village life. After the grinding is complete, the fresh flour is poured back into sturdy cloth sacks. It feels much lighter than the grain that arrived only hours before. Yet everyone understands how much work lies hidden inside each handful. Months of planting, months of growing, weeks of harvesting, hours of grinding. Only then can bread finally be made. The family begins the journey home. The afternoon breeze carries the scent of wildflowers across the fields. Behind them, the great water wheel continues turning, slowly, steadily, just as it has done for many years. Tomorrow another family will arrive with another cart of grain. The wheel will keep turning, the millstones will keep singing their quiet song, and life in the medieval village will continue, one harvest at a time. As the sacks of fresh flour are safely stored inside the cottage, another part of the day's work is already waiting. The animals, for a medieval peasant, livestock are far more than simple companions. They are the family's greatest investment. They provide food, they help with farming, they make survival possible. Before the sun climbs too high into the sky, you walk toward the small wooden shelter beside the cottage. The animals are already awake. A cow lets out a slow, gentle moo. A few chickens scratch eagerly at the ground, searching for seeds and insects. A pig sniffs the muddy earth with endless curiosity. Each animal depends upon the family, and the family depends upon them. The cow is perhaps the most valuable of them all. If she is healthy, she provides milk each day. That milk can be turned into butter or cheese. Sometimes, if there is more than the family needs, it can be traded with neighbors. A healthy cow is a sign of good fortune. You carry a bucket and a small wooden stool into the shelter. The morning milking begins. The work requires patience. The cow must remain calm. Your hands move slowly and steadily. The soft sound of milk striking the wooden bucket fills the quiet air. Nearby, chickens wander freely through the yard. They ask for very little: a handful of grain, a safe place to sleep at night. In return, they provide eggs that become an important part of the family's diet. Children are often responsible for collecting those eggs. They search carefully beneath nests of straw, smiling whenever they find another smooth shell waiting. Not every task is pleasant. The pig's pen must be cleaned. Fresh straw is spread across the ground. Buckets of water are carried back and forth. The smell is strong, but no one complains. It is simply another ordinary part of village life. If the family owns sheep, they too require daily attention. Their thick wool protects them through the cold months. Each spring, the sheep are carefully sheared. That wool will eventually become warm clothing and blankets. Nothing is wasted. Even animal manure has value. It is gathered and spread across the fields as fertilizer. What seems unpleasant today will help next year's crops grow stronger. Everything in the village is connected. The fields feed the animals. The animals help the fields. The family cares for both. As afternoon approaches, the livestock are led toward open pasture. The cow grazes peacefully on fresh grass. The sheep move together like a slow white cloud across the hillside. The chickens continue their endless search for insects beneath the warm sun. For a few quiet moments, everything feels calm. The only sounds are birds singing, distant church bells, and the gentle breeze moving through the tall grass. As evening arrives, the animals return home. Their shelters are checked one final time. The gates are closed securely. Foxes, wolves, and thieves sometimes visit after dark. A careful farmer never leaves anything to chance. The family stands for a moment, watching the peaceful scene before returning to the cottage. Tomorrow, these same animals will need care once again. Because in medieval life, every sunrise begins with responsibility, and every sunset ends with gratitude for the creatures that help keep the family alive. The days in the village follow a familiar rhythm. The fields demand constant attention. The animals require daily care. The bread must be baked. The water must be carried. But every so often, another important task appears. A tool has broken. Perhaps the edge of a sickle has become dull after weeks of harvesting. Perhaps the iron tip of a plow has cracked against a hidden stone. Without these tools, work cannot continue. So, early one morning, you and your father begin the short walk to the village blacksmith. Long before you reach his workshop, you hear it. Clang, clang, clang. The sharp ring of hammer striking hot iron echoes across the village. It is a sound everyone recognizes. As you draw closer, warm air rolls out through the open doorway. Inside, a bright fire glows deep within a stone forge. The heat is almost overwhelming. The blacksmith stands beside the flames. His leather apron is darkened by years of soot and sparks. His powerful arms move with practiced confidence. With long iron tongs, he lifts a piece of glowing metal from the fire. The iron shines a brilliant orange, almost like the setting sun. He places it upon a heavy anvil. Then comes the hammer. Each strike is firm, precise, purposeful. Tiny sparks leap into the air with every blow. To a child, it feels almost magical. A cold piece of metal slowly changes shape beneath skilled hands. A broken tool becomes useful once again. The blacksmith is one of the most respected craftsmen in the village. Few people understand iron as he does. He repairs plows, sharpens axes, mends horseshoes, forges knives. Without his work, farming would become far more difficult. Your father places the damaged sickle on the wooden bench. The blacksmith picks it up carefully. He studies the worn blade without saying much. A small crack runs along one edge. It can be repaired. With a quiet nod, he begins his work. While you wait, you look around the workshop. Hammers of different sizes hang neatly from wooden pegs. Long metal tongs rest beside the forge. Bars of iron lean against the wall, waiting for their turn. Everything has its place. Everything has a purpose. The smell of smoke mixes with the scent of hot metal and burning charcoal. It is unlike any other place in the village. Soon, the repaired sickle is plunged into a barrel of cool water. A loud hiss fills the room. Clouds of steam rise toward the ceiling. The blade is polished with a rough stone until its edge shines once more. Your father smiles quietly. The tool will serve the family for many more seasons. Before leaving, he thanks the blacksmith and offers payment. Sometimes it is a few coins, sometimes grain, sometimes food from the family's harvest. Money is not always necessary. Skill itself has value. As you step back outside, a cool breeze feels refreshing after the intense heat of the forge. Behind you, the steady sound of hammer striking iron begins once again. Clang, clang, clang. The blacksmith returns to his endless work. Tomorrow another broken tool will arrive. Another farmer will need his help, and just like the turning of the seasons, the rhythm of the forge will never truly stop. Not every day in medieval life is spent quietly in the fields. Every so often, the village becomes filled with excitement. It is market day. For many families, this is the busiest and most interesting day of the week. The morning begins earlier than usual. Before the first light appears, farmers are already preparing their carts. Baskets are filled with fresh vegetables. Eggs are carefully wrapped in straw. Wheels of homemade cheese are placed inside wooden crates. Bundles of wool, jars of honey, and sacks of grain are loaded one by one. Nothing is packed carelessly. Every item represents many days of hard work. As the sun rises, people begin traveling toward the marketplace. Some arrive on foot. Others guide small wooden carts pulled by patient oxen or sturdy horses. Families greet neighbors with cheerful smiles. Children walk beside their parents, eager to see the sights waiting ahead. For them, market day feels almost like a festival. Soon, the quiet village square is transformed. Wooden stalls line the open space. Colorful cloth awnings flutter gently in the morning breeze. The air fills with voices, laughter, and the sounds of trading. A baker proudly displays warm loaves of fresh bread. A butcher hangs cuts of meat beneath a shaded roof. A potter carefully arranges handmade bowls and jugs upon a rough wooden table. Nearby, a blacksmith offers newly sharpened tools. Each stall tells its own story. The marketplace is more than a place to buy and sell. It is where people meet old friends, where travelers bring news from distant towns, where farmers learn about the weather, harvests, and events beyond their own village. For many peasants, this is the only chance to hear stories from the outside world. A traveling merchant speaks of a great city several days away. Another describes ships arriving from distant lands with strange spices and fine cloth. The children listen with wide eyes. Those faraway places seem almost impossible to imagine. Your family carefully examines each stall. Money is limited. Every purchase must be considered wisely. Perhaps a new cooking pot is needed, maybe a sharper knife, or a small bundle of salt, one of the most valuable ingredients a peasant can own. Salt preserves meat through the long winter months. Without it, much precious food would spoil. After selling a few baskets of vegetables and several dozen eggs, your father counts the coins slowly. There are not many, but they are enough for the family's needs, enough to return home satisfied. As midday arrives, music drifts across the marketplace. A wandering musician plays a simple tune on a wooden flute. Children laugh as they dance together. For a brief moment, the worries of farming seem far away. The village feels alive, full of color, full of voices, full of hope. But as the afternoon sun begins to sink, the market slowly comes to an end. The merchants pack their goods. The carts are loaded once more. Neighbors say their farewells until the next market day. The road home feels quieter. The family carries a few new supplies and many new stories. Tomorrow, life will return to its familiar routine. The fields will still need tending. The animals will still need feeding. But tonight, as the cottage grows warm beneath the firelight, everyone carries a small memory of the lively market square. A reminder that even in the simple life of a medieval peasant, there were moments of joy, friendship, and discovery waiting just beyond the village road. As another week draws to a close, the rhythm of the village begins to change. The fields can wait for a few hours. The tools are laid aside. The animals are fed early. Today is a day for worship. As the morning sun rises above the rolling hills, the church bell echoes across the countryside. Its deep, familiar sound reaches every cottage. One by one, families step outside. They wear their cleanest clothes. Though the garments are plain and carefully patched, they are treated with great respect. For many peasants, these are the finest clothes they own. The walk to the church is peaceful. Neighbors greet one another with quiet smiles. Children walk beside their parents, trying their best to remain calm and respectful. The church stands at the center of the village. Built from heavy stone, it is larger and stronger than any cottage nearby. Its tall bell tower can be seen from miles away. To the villagers, it is more than just a building. It is the heart of their community. As the heavy wooden doors open, cool air greets everyone inside. The sunlight passes through small stained glass windows, painting soft colors across the stone floor. Rows of simple wooden benches fill the room. The smell of burning candles and old timber hangs gently in the air. The priest begins the service. Many villagers cannot read or write. They learn about the Bible by listening carefully to his words. Stories of kindness, stories of hope, stories of faith during difficult times. These lessons offer comfort to people whose lives are often filled with uncertainty. The church is also where important moments of life take place. Newborn babies are baptized here. Young couples are married before family and friends. When someone dies, the funeral begins within these same stone walls. The church witnesses every stage of a person's life. After the service ends, no one rushes home. People remain outside beneath the warm afternoon sun. Friends exchange news. Neighbors ask about each other's families. Children laugh as they play in the churchyard. For a little while, work is forgotten. An elderly farmer shares stories of harvests from many years ago. A young mother introduces her newborn baby to relatives. Travelers passing through the village stop to rest and tell tales of distant towns. For many people, this is the only opportunity to hear news from beyond the surrounding fields. As the afternoon grows late, the church bell rings once more. Families slowly begin the walk home. The peaceful silence of the countryside returns. Tomorrow, the fields will once again demand hard work. The plows will return to the soil. The animals will need care. The endless routine of medieval life will continue. But for one quiet morning each week, the village gathers together, not as farmers, not as craftsmen, not as laborers, but as one community, united by faith, hope, and the simple belief that even the hardest life becomes a little lighter when it is shared with others. The church doors close gently behind the last family. The bell falls silent, and another peaceful Sunday in medieval Europe comes to an end. He day's work is finally over. The fields have grown quiet. The animals have been fed. The tools have been cleaned and placed carefully against the cottage wall. As the last golden light disappears behind the hills, the village slowly settles into the peaceful silence of evening. Families return to their homes one by one. Thin streams of smoke rise gently from thatched rooftops. Inside every cottage, the hearth becomes the center of life once again. The fire has burned since early morning, but now fresh logs are added. Bright orange flames dance across the dark room, pushing away the cool air that arrives with the setting sun. Without this fire, the cottage would quickly become cold and uncomfortable. Everyone gathers close. The youngest children sit nearest to the warmth. Their tired faces glow softly in the flickering light. The older members of the family remove their worn boots and stretch aching muscles after another long day of labor. There is a deep sense of relief, not because tomorrow will be easier, but because today's work is finally complete. Soon, supper is served. A large iron pot hangs above the fire. Inside, a simple stew slowly bubbles. Cabbages, onions, beans, perhaps a few carrots. If the family is fortunate, there may be a small piece of salted meat adding flavor to the meal. Fresh bread from the morning's baking rests beside the pot. Each person receives a modest portion. No one expects luxury. The meal is plain, but it is warm. And after a full day in the fields, that is more than enough. Conversation begins quietly. Your father speaks about tomorrow's work. Perhaps another section of the field must be planted. Perhaps a fence needs repairing before the animals wander too far. Your mother reminds everyone that more firewood should be gathered before the weather changes. The children listen carefully. Even though they say very little, they are learning. One day, these responsibilities will become their own. After supper, the bowls are washed with precious water from the well. Nothing is wasted. The smallest crumbs of bread are carefully saved. Even the ashes from the fire may be used later to help make soap or enrich the garden. Every part of daily life has its purpose. As darkness deepens outside, the family finds small ways to pass the evening. A grandmother quietly spins wool into thread. A father repairs the handle of a wooden rake. A mother carefully mends a torn sleeve with steady hands. The children carve little figures from pieces of wood or simply listen as stories fill the room. Many of these stories have been told for generations. They speak of brave kings, faithful saints, mysterious forests, hidden treasures, and strange creatures said to wander beneath the moonlight. Whether every story is true hardly matters. The stories bring comfort. They bring laughter. They remind everyone that even during difficult times, imagination remains free. Outside, the night grows still. The stars appear one by one above the quiet countryside. Somewhere in the distance an owl calls through the darkness. The animals settle peacefully into their shelters. The entire village seems to breathe more slowly. Inside the little cottage, the fire burns lower with each passing hour. The warmth remains. The family grows sleepy. Tomorrow will bring another sunrise, another day of work, another chapter in the simple, hard-working life of a medieval peasant. But for this one peaceful evening, there is food on the table. There is warmth by the fire, and there is family gathered together beneath one humble roof. For now, that is enough. The day's work is finally over. The fields have grown quiet, the animals have been fed, the tools have been cleaned and placed carefully against the cottage wall. As the last golden light disappears behind the hills, the village slowly settles into the peaceful silence of evening. Families return to their homes one by one. Thin streams of smoke rise gently from thatched rooftops. Inside every cottage, the hearth becomes the center of life once again. The fire has burned since early morning, but now fresh logs are added. Bright orange flames dance across the dark room, pushing away the cool air that arrives with the setting sun. Without this fire, the cottage would quickly become cold and uncomfortable. Everyone gathers close. The youngest children sit nearest to the warmth. Their tired faces glow softly in the flickering light. The older members of the family remove their worn boots and stretch aching muscles after another long day of labor. There is a deep sense of relief, not because tomorrow will be easier, but because today's work is finally complete. Soon, supper is served. A large iron pot hangs above the fire. Inside, a simple stew slowly bubbles: cabbages, onions, beans, perhaps a few carrots. If the family is fortunate, there may be a small piece of salted meat adding flavor to the meal. Fresh bread from the morning's baking rests beside the pot. Each person receives a modest portion. No one expects luxury. The meal is plain, but it is warm, and after a full day in the fields, that is more than enough. Conversation begins quietly. Your father speaks about tomorrow's work. Perhaps another section of the field must be planted. Perhaps a fence needs repairing before the animals wander too far. Your mother reminds everyone that more firewood should be gathered before the weather changes. The children listen carefully. Even though they say very little, they are learning. One day, these responsibilities will become their own. After supper, the bowls are washed with precious water from the well. Nothing is wasted. The smallest crumbs of bread are carefully saved. Even the ashes from the fire may be used later to help make soap or enrich the garden. Every part of daily life has its purpose. As darkness deepens outside, the family finds small ways to pass the evening. A grandmother quietly spins wool into thread. A father repairs the handle of a wooden rake. A mother carefully mends a torn sleeve with steady hands. The children carve little figures from pieces of wood or simply listen as stories fill the room. Many of these stories have been told for generations. They speak of brave kings, faithful saints, mysterious forests, hidden treasures, and strange creatures said to wander beneath the moonlight. Whether every story is true hardly matters. The stories bring comfort. They bring laughter. They remind everyone that even during difficult times, imagination remains free. Outside, the night grows still. The stars appear one by one above the quiet countryside. Somewhere in the distance an owl calls through the darkness. The animals settle peacefully into their shelters. The entire village seems to breathe more slowly. Inside the little cottage, the fire burns lower with each passing hour. The warmth remains. The family grows sleepy. Tomorrow will bring another sunrise, another day of work, another chapter in the simple, hard-working life of a medieval peasant. But for this one peaceful evening, there is food on the table, there is warmth by the fire, and there is family gathered together beneath one humble roof. For now, that is enough. The long winter has finally begun to loosen its grip. For many weeks, the fields have rested beneath frost and cold rain. The trees have stood silent against gray skies. The village has waited patiently. Now, almost unnoticed at first, the world begins to change. One morning, you step outside the cottage and feel something different. The air is softer. The wind no longer bites quite so sharply. Tiny drops of water fall from the edge of the thatched roof as the last patches of ice begin to melt. Spring is arriving. At first, the changes are small. A single green shoot pushes through the dark soil. A bird sings from the branch of an old oak tree. The days grow only a few minutes longer, yet every villager notices these quiet signs. After months of cold and uncertainty, they bring hope. The fields that looked lifeless only weeks ago slowly begin to awaken. Fresh grass spreads across the hillsides. Wildflowers appear along the narrow footpaths. The streams, swollen by melting snow, flow faster than before. Their gentle sound fills the countryside with life once again. The animals seem to sense the change as well. The chickens wander farther from the cottage. The sheep graze happily on the new grass. Young lambs, born during the early weeks of spring, stumble clumsily beside their mothers. Children cannot help but smile as they watch them leap through the fields. For the farmers, however, spring means something else: work. There is little time to admire the beauty of the season. The plows must be repaired. The soil must be turned once more. Seeds carefully saved throughout the winter are brought out from storage. Every day becomes precious. A late planting could mean a poor harvest months later. The village becomes busy again. The quiet evenings of winter are replaced by long hours beneath the open sky. Neighbors work side by side, helping one another prepare the fields. The sound of wooden carts fills the roads. The church bell echoes across the valley as another growing season begins. There is excitement, but there is also uncertainty. No one knows what the coming months will bring. Will the rains arrive at the right time? Will insects destroy the crops? Will storms flatten the fields before harvest? No farmer can answer these questions, so they do what they have always done. They work, they hope, and they trust that nature will be kind. As the sun begins to set on another spring evening, the village glows with warm golden light. Smoke rises gently from the cottages. The fresh scent of damp earth drifts through the cool air. Children chase one another along the grassy paths, their laughter echoing across the fields. For a little while, life feels peaceful. The hardships of winter seem far away. A new season has begun. A new harvest is possible. And with every sunrise, the medieval peasant begins once again the endless cycle of planting, working, waiting, and hoping. The land has awakened, and so have the people who depend upon it. Spring has quietly passed. The tiny green shoots that once barely reached above the soil have grown into tall fields of waving grain. Now summer has arrived. The mornings begin earlier than ever. Before the first hint of sunlight appears above the horizon, the village is already awake. Today is the beginning of the harvest. For a medieval peasant, no season is more important. Everything the family has worked toward since spring now depends upon the next few weeks. The air is warm even before sunrise. A gentle mist hangs above the golden fields. Each stalk of wheat bends softly in the morning breeze, ready to be gathered. Your family walks silently toward the fields. Everyone understands the importance of the work ahead. There is no need for many words. Each person carries a familiar tool: a sharp sickle, a wooden rake, bundles of rope for tying the harvested grain. Nothing is forgotten. Every tool has been repaired and sharpened during the months before harvest. As the first rays of sunlight touch the fields, the work begins. The sickle moves in a smooth, practiced motion. A handful of wheat is gathered. The curved blade slices cleanly through the stalks. The bundle is placed gently upon the ground, then another, and another. The movement repeats itself hundreds of times, hour after hour. The sound is peaceful. The soft rustling of wheat, the quiet scrape of iron, the songs of birds drifting across the countryside. It is exhausting work. The summer sun climbs higher into the sky. Its warmth becomes intense. Sweat runs down tired faces, hands become sore, backs begin to ache from bending over countless times, yet no one stops. Every hour matters. A sudden storm could destroy the harvest in a single afternoon. Dark clouds on the horizon always bring concern. Neighbors work together whenever possible. Large families help smaller ones. When one field is finished, everyone moves to the next. The harvest belongs to the whole village. Success is shared. So are hardship and disappointment. As midday arrives, the family rests beneath the shade of a large oak tree. Lunch is simple: a piece of dark bread, a little cheese, perhaps an onion, and a cup of weak ale. The meal is quiet. No one wishes to waste precious energy. Soon they return to the fields once again. Children help by gathering loose stalks that have fallen to the ground. Even the smallest bundle is valuable. Nothing is left behind. As the afternoon slowly fades into evening, neat rows of harvested wheat cover the field. The golden grain is tied into large sheaves and stood upright to dry beneath the open sky. Looking across the land, the family feels a quiet sense of pride. Weeks of careful work have begun to bear fruit. The harvest is far from over. Many long days still lie ahead, but tonight there is hope. Hope that the barns will soon be full. Hope that winter will bring enough food. Hope that another year of hard work will keep the family safe. As the sun sinks below the distant hills, the golden fields glow one final time. The village begins its slow walk home. Tomorrow, the harvest will continue. The harvest continues, Yesterday's hard work has barely ended, and already a new day has begun. The rooster crows long before sunrise. Without complaint, the village wakes once again. The fields cannot wait. Summer is generous, but it is also unforgiving. Every clear day is a gift, every rainy day is a risk. As you step outside, the morning air is pleasant. A cool breeze brushes across the fields. But everyone knows that by midday, the sun will be high above, turning the open countryside into a sea of heat. The family reaches the wheat fields just as the first golden light touches the horizon. The crops shimmer like waves beneath the gentle wind. It is a beautiful sight, yet no one has time to admire it for long. The day's work begins immediately. The sun rises higher with every passing hour. Its warmth grows stronger. Soon every movement feels heavier. Your shirt clings to your back. Sweat rolls down your face. Dust sticks to your hands and arms. The air is filled with tiny pieces of dry straw drifting through the light. Breathing becomes slower. The work becomes harder. Still, the harvest cannot stop. Every bundle of grain left standing in the field is another chance for bad weather to destroy months of effort. The family works steadily. No one rushes. No one wastes energy. Experience has taught them that slow, careful work lasts longer than reckless speed. Around midday, the heat becomes almost overwhelming. The birds grow quieter. Even the breeze seems to disappear. The countryside falls into a peaceful stillness, broken only by the soft sound of sickles cutting through wheat. At last, the family pauses for a short rest. They sit beneath the shade of an old elm tree. The cool shadow feels wonderful after hours beneath the open sky. A small cloth is spread across the grass. Lunch is simple. Dark bread, a little cheese, perhaps a handful of dried apples saved from the previous autumn. A wooden cup of cool water is passed from one person to another. No one speaks very much. Everyone is saving their strength for the afternoon. After only a few minutes, the break is over. The work begins again. The sun slowly moves across the sky. Long rows of wheat disappear one bundle at a time. Children gather the loose stalks. Older family members tie the sheaves with straw. Nothing is wasted. Every grain has value. Late in the afternoon, dark clouds begin forming far beyond the hills. Your father looks toward the sky. He says nothing. He simply works a little faster. Everyone understands. A summer storm could arrive before sunset. Lightning, heavy rain, strong winds. Any one of them could flatten the standing grain. The family continues until the very last light begins to fade. Finally, the tools are lifted onto tired shoulders. The harvest for today is finished. As you walk back toward the village, the evening breeze finally returns. It cools your sun-warmed face. Behind you, neat rows of golden sheaves stand quietly beneath the fading sky. They are more than bundles of wheat. They are weeks of labor, months of hope, and the promise that if fortune is kind, another winter may be faced with full hearts and full barns. Tomorrow, before the sun rises once again, the harvest will continue. For many days, the summer sky has remained clear. The harvest has continued from sunrise until sunset. The fields have grown quieter as more and more grain is gathered, yet every farmer keeps glancing toward the horizon. The land needs rain, not too much, not too little, just enough to keep the earth alive. One evening, as the family finishes stacking the last bundles of wheat, something changes. The warm breeze disappears. The air becomes strangely still. Even the birds fall silent. Far away, dark clouds begin gathering above the distant hills. Your father looks toward the sky. He smiles quietly. It may rain tonight, he says. The family returns home a little faster than usual. Tools are placed safely inside the shed. The animals are led into their shelters. Loose bundles of hay are covered with cloth to protect them from the coming weather. Everyone prepares. Just after sunset, the first drop falls, then another. Soon, gentle rain begins tapping softly against the thatched roof. Inside the cottage, the family listens quietly. The sound is peaceful. Water runs from the roof into the muddy ground below. The dry earth eagerly drinks every drop. The air becomes cool and fresh. The familiar smell of rain fills the countryside. For the first time in many weeks, the village sleeps beneath the steady rhythm of falling water. By morning, the storm has passed. The world outside looks completely different. The fields sparkle beneath the rising sun. Tiny drops of water cling to every blade of grass. The leaves of the trees shine like polished glass. Birds sing louder than before, as if celebrating the fresh new day. The stream beside the village flows a little faster. The wells are replenished. The gardens seem greener already. The rain has brought life back to the land. But every farmer understands another truth. Too much rain can become just as dangerous as too little. Heavy storms can flood fields, strong winds can knock down ripening grain. A swollen river may wash away bridges and roads. Nature always demands respect. Fortunately, this storm has been gentle. It has given the village exactly what it needed. As the family walks back toward the fields, they notice how soft the earth feels beneath their boots. The crops stand tall once again. The vegetables in the garden seem healthier. Even the animals appear more comfortable in the cool morning air. The work begins as always. There are still fields to harvest, fences to repair, animals to feed. Life never stops, yet today's labor feels a little lighter. Hope has returned with the rain. The family works beneath a sky washed clean by the storm. Bright white clouds drift slowly across the deep blue heavens. The warm summer sun returns, but now its heat feels kinder. The village breathes easily once again. Every drop of rain has reminded the people of a simple truth. No matter how carefully a farmer works, some gifts can only come from the sky. And on this peaceful summer morning, the sky has been generous. The weeks of harvesting are slowly coming to an end. The fields that once shimmered with tall golden wheat now stand nearly empty. Only short stubble remains stretching across the countryside like a golden carpet beneath the gentle autumn sun. The busiest season of the year is almost over. For the first time in many weeks, the village begins to breathe a little more slowly. There is still work to do. There is always work, but now people have something pleasant to look forward to. The autumn fair. It does not happen often, perhaps only once each year. For many peasants, it is the largest gathering they will attend. Days before the fair, every family begins making preparations. The best vegetables are carefully selected from the garden: round cabbages, bright onions, fresh carrots, bundles of herbs tied neatly with string. Nothing is chosen carelessly. Families hope to sell their finest produce. Inside the cottage, your mother wraps several wheels of homemade cheese in clean linen cloth. Your father inspects the sacks of grain one final time. He brushes away every loose straw before tying each bag securely. Everything must look its best. Children are just as excited. They help clean the wooden cart. They polish leather harnesses. They feed the family's ox a little extra grain before the journey. For them, the fair is more than a marketplace. It is an adventure. The evening before the fair, the village feels different. Neighbors stop to talk a little longer than usual. They wonder which merchants will arrive. Will there be musicians? Will travelers bring stories from distant kingdoms? Perhaps someone has never before seen goods to trade. Excitement quietly spreads from cottage to cottage. Long before sunrise, the village is awake once again. Lanterns flicker softly in the darkness as families finish loading their carts. The roads soon fill with people traveling in the same direction. Some walk beside wagons, others ride small horses, most simply carry baskets upon their backs. The journey is peaceful. Morning mist hangs above the fields, birdsong echoes from nearby forests. The cool autumn air feels fresh after the long heat of summer. As the sun rises, the distant sound of laughter reaches your ears. The fair is already beginning. Colorful banners flutter gently above rows of wooden stalls. Merchants call out cheerful greetings. Children run excitedly between the crowded paths. The smell of fresh bread, roasted meat, and sweet honey cakes drifts through the cool morning air. For a moment, the worries of farming seem very far away. The harvest has been difficult. The days have been long, but today is different. Today, the village celebrates another successful season. Not with great wealth, not with luxury, but with gratitude. Because every full sack of grain, every basket of vegetables, and every smiling face is proof that another year has been survived. As your family enters the busy fairground together, you cannot help but smile. The day has only just begun, and it promises to be one that the village will remember long after the autumn leaves have fallen. Autumn fair is now in full swing. The village square is alive with cheerful voices, the creaking of wooden carts, and the gentle laughter of children. For many peasants, this is the most exciting day of the entire year, not only because they can sell their harvest, but because today strangers have arrived. Traveling merchants. They come from distant towns and busy cities that most villagers will never see with their own eyes. Their wagons are larger than any found in the village. Strong horses pull them across muddy roads that stretch for hundreds of miles. The wagons are covered with heavy canvas, protecting valuable goods from rain and dust. As the merchants begin opening their crates, a small crowd quickly gathers. Inside are objects unlike anything made in the village. Brightly colored cloth from faraway lands, small glass bottles that sparkle in the morning sunlight, Fine iron knives with beautifully carved wooden handles, delicate pottery painted with patterns no local craftsman could create. To the children it feels almost magical. Every stall seems filled with wonders. One merchant carefully unfolds rich blue fabric. Another displays tiny silver rings upon a velvet cloth. Nearby, a spice trader opens a small wooden box. A warm, unfamiliar scent fills the air. Cinnamon, cloves, pepper. Most villagers have never tasted such expensive spices. They pause for a moment, breathing in the strange and wonderful aroma. Your father studies the prices carefully. He knows these goods are beautiful, but beauty alone cannot feed a family through winter. He walks past the expensive jewelry. He admires the colorful cloth without stopping. Instead, he searches for practical things: a stronger rope, a sharper knife, a better cooking pot that might last another 20 years. Every coin must be spent wisely. Meanwhile, your mother speaks with another merchant selling sewing needles. Such tiny objects seem unimportant, yet a single strong needle can repair countless pieces of clothing over many years. Sometimes the smallest purchase brings the greatest value. The merchants are storytellers as well as traders. While waiting for customers, they describe the places they have visited: great castles surrounded by stone walls, busy ports where hundreds of ships arrive every week, large cities where church bells ring from dozens of towers at once. The villagers listen in complete silence. These places seem almost impossible to imagine. For most peasants, the world extends only a few miles beyond their own fields. The merchants have seen lands that exist only in stories. Children gather around one old traveler as he points toward a faded map spread across his table. He speaks of snowy mountains, wide rivers, endless forests, and distant kingdoms beyond the horizon. Every word fills young minds with wonder. As afternoon slowly turns toward evening, business begins to slow. The merchants count their earnings. Families gather the supplies they have purchased. The wagons are packed once more. Tomorrow, these travelers will continue their long journeys to another village, another fair, another group of curious faces. As your family walks home beneath the golden light of the setting sun, you carry only a few simple purchases. But you also carry something else: new stories, new ideas, and a quiet reminder that beyond the peaceful fields of your little village, there is a much larger world waiting just over the horizon. The excitement of the autumn fair has slowly faded. The traveling merchants have continued their journeys. The market stalls have disappeared. The village has become quiet once again. Now, every family turns its attention toward a single goal: preparing for winter. No one knows exactly how cold the coming months will be. No one knows how much snow will fall. No one knows whether sickness will visit the village. But everyone knows one thing: preparation begins now. Each morning, before the mist has lifted from the fields, families return to work. The last vegetables are carefully gathered from the garden. Firm cabbages are pulled from the earth. Turnips and carrots are placed into woven baskets. Onions are tied together and hung from the rafters inside the cottage. Everything is stored with care. Nothing is wasted. Nearby, your father examines the grain stored inside the wooden barn. The sacks are stacked neatly upon raised platforms to keep them dry. Every few days he checks them carefully. A single leak in the roof or a family of hungry mice could destroy weeks of precious labor. The barn is more than a building. It is the family's hope for survival. Outside, firewood becomes just as important as food. The nearby forest echoes with the sound of axes. Men and older boys cut fallen trees into manageable pieces. Heavy logs are loaded onto wooden carts and slowly carried back to the village. Children help by collecting smaller branches scattered across the woodland floor. Even the tiniest piece of dry wood has value. During the coldest nights, every log will matter. Back at the cottage, long rows of split firewood begin to grow beside the wall. The pile becomes taller with every passing day. Looking at it brings quiet comfort. It is a visible reminder that the family is preparing well. Inside the house, your mother begins another important task: preserving food. Fresh apples are sliced into thin pieces and left to dry. Herbs gathered during summer are tied into small bundles and hung from the ceiling. Beans are stored in cloth sacks. Salted meat is wrapped carefully and placed in the coolest corner of the cottage. Every method has been learned through generations of experience. The goal is simple: make today's food last until spring. Even the animals receive special attention. Extra hay is gathered and stacked beneath wooden shelters. The cow grows a thicker coat as the days become colder. The chickens spend more time close to the warmth of their co-op. Every living creature prepares in its own way. As the weeks pass, the countryside slowly changes. The leaves covering the trees turn brilliant shades of gold, orange, and deep red. Each gust of wind sends another shower of leaves drifting gently toward the ground. The air smells different now. Cooler, sharper, cleaner. There is beauty everywhere. Yet every farmer understands what this beauty means. Winter is getting closer. One evening your father stands quietly outside the cottage. He looks across the neatly stacked firewood, the full-grain barn, the peaceful garden now resting after its final harvest. He smiles softly. There is still much work ahead, but tonight he feels something rare: confidence. The family has done everything they can. The rest now belongs to the changing seasons. As darkness settles across the village, the first truly cold wind of autumn whispers through the trees. Winter is coming, and the people of the medieval village will be ready to face it together. The days continue to grow shorter. Only a few weeks ago, the sun lingered in the sky well into the evening. Now, darkness arrives much sooner. The warm days of summer are becoming distant memories. Autumn has settled over the countryside. Each morning a thin layer of mist covers the fields. The grass sparkles with tiny drops of dew. Your breath becomes visible in the cool air as you step outside the cottage. The seasons are changing once again. The trees surrounding the village have become a sea of gold, amber, and crimson. Every gentle breeze sends leaves drifting softly toward the ground. Children cannot resist kicking through the colorful piles as they walk along the narrow paths. For a few moments, even the simplest journey feels joyful. But the adults see something different. Every falling leaf is another reminder that winter is approaching. There is still much work to do. The fences surrounding the fields must be inspected one last time. Loose wooden posts are hammered firmly into the ground. Broken rails are replaced before snow and ice make repairs impossible. The roof of the cottage also demands careful attention. Your father climbs slowly onto the thatched roof. With patient hands, he replaces worn bundles of straw that have been damaged by summer rain. A single hole may seem unimportant today, but during a winter storm, even the smallest leak can make life miserable. Inside the cottage, preparations continue. Extra blankets are taken from the wooden chest. They smell faintly of dried lavender and smoke from many winters before. Your mother carefully checks each one. Small holes are stitched closed before they become larger. Nothing is ignored. Nothing is wasted. Outside, the animals behave differently. The sheep grow thick, heavy coats. The cow spends more time inside the shelter during the cold mornings. Birds gather in large flocks above the fields before beginning their long journeys south. Even nature understands what is coming. One afternoon, a strong wind sweeps across the village. It whistles through the trees and rattles every wooden door. Loose leaves race across the dirt roads like tiny golden waves. Children laugh as they chase them. The older villagers simply smile. They have seen this countless times before. The autumn wind always arrives before the first hard frost. As evening approaches, smoke rises from every chimney. The familiar smell of burning oak and pine fills the cool air. Families gather indoors a little earlier each night. The fire feels warmer than it did only a few weeks ago. The little cottage becomes a place of comfort against the growing cold outside. After supper, your grandfather begins telling stories of winters long ago. He remembers snow so deep that cottage doors could barely be opened. He remembers rivers freezing solid enough for people to walk across. He remembers seasons when wolves wandered close to the village searching for food. The children listen quietly. Some stories sound frightening, others sound almost unbelievable, yet every story carries the same lesson. Prepare well, respect nature, and never take a warm fire or a full pantry for granted. Later that night, you step outside for one final look before sleep. The village is silent. Above you, countless stars shine brightly in the clear autumn sky. The air is cold enough to make you pull your cloak a little tighter. Far away, an owl calls from the dark forest. You take one deep breath. Winter has not yet arrived, but you can already feel it drawing closer with every passing day. Soon, the first frost will cover the fields, and another chapter of medieval life will quietly begin. The night has been colder than any before. As dawn slowly approaches, the village remains quiet beneath a pale gray sky. The rooster has not yet crowed. The only sound is the gentle whisper of the wind moving through the bare branches. You open the cottage door and step outside. Immediately, the cold air fills your lungs. It is sharp, fresh, almost completely silent. Then you notice something different. The ground is white, not with snow, but with frost. Every blade of grass is covered with tiny crystals of ice. The wooden fence sparkles in the first light of morning. Even the roof of the cottage glitters like silver beneath the rising sun. For the children, it is a wonderful sight. They run across the fields, laughing as the frozen grass crunches beneath their feet. Each step leaves a trail of footprints across the white meadow. Their breath forms little clouds in the cold air. For a moment, the village feels almost magical. The adults smile as they watch, but they also understand what the frost truly means. Winter is no longer a distant promise, it is almost here. The vegetable gardens are checked carefully. Any crop still growing must be harvested quickly before the freezing nights become even colder. The last cabbages are carried inside. The remaining carrots are lifted from the earth. Nothing can be left behind. The fields themselves have become quiet. Only scattered birds search for seeds among the empty rows where wheat once stood. The busy sounds of harvest have disappeared. Now, the countryside waits. The animals also feel the change. The cow's breath rises in soft white clouds. The sheep gather closer together for warmth. The chickens leave their co-op more slowly than usual, reluctant to step onto the frozen ground. Back inside the cottage, the fire is burning brightly. Fresh logs crackle as orange flames chase away the morning chill. The family gathers around the hearth for a simple breakfast. Warm porridge tastes even better on a cold morning. The heat from the wooden bowl slowly returns feeling to cold hands. Outside, the frost begins to melt. As the sun climbs higher into the sky, tiny drops of water fall gently from every leaf and branch. For a few hours, the village warms again. But everyone knows the warmth will not last. Each night will become colder than the one before. Each sunrise will bring another layer of frost. After breakfast, your father walks once more around the cottage. He checks the roof. He inspects the barn doors. He makes certain the firewood remains dry beneath its shelter. Preparation never truly ends. Nature gives very little warning before winter arrives. As evening falls, the western sky glows with shades of orange and deep purple. The air is already colder than it was the night before. Families close their shutters early. Smoke rises from every chimney. The village settles into another peaceful evening. The first frost has come. It is beautiful. It is quiet. And it is a gentle reminder that the hardest season of the year is waiting just beyond the horizon. Tomorrow, the preparations will continue, because every medieval peasant knows that surviving winter begins long before the first snowfall.